say, just for the record, it was not best 20 writers under 40. It was only, this was the best book for the New Yorker of 2012, so they only liked this book. All the rest of it was shit.
It's not true.
I'm not promising in the least, but it was this book that they liked.
But we talk about your, we talk about 4 new messages, as mentioned already, the best book. We can't say it often enough. The best book in 2012 by
Which was a very bad year for books. One of the worst years of books.
You're so humble. Well, what brought you to Cohen in the first place? Just party,
what brought
reputation of the city?
You know, I bought into all of that idea of, at first I couldn't get a job after college. I couldn't get a job. I went for one interview at a publishing house to be like an associate editor, which is like a nice title, but it's a nothing job. And the guy said, "Who's your favorite writer?" And I said, "Celine." And that was just not happening. They wanted something published in the last 4 years. So I had won $5,000 in a short story competition back in New York, and I thought that was an enormous amount of money. I still think it is an enormous amount of money. And I had some friends who were here doing nothing, and they said, "Come and do nothing with me."
And then you did nothing.
No, I worked very hard, but it felt like doing nothing. Yeah, I wrote 4 books, or finished 2 books and began another 2. I worked for a thing called JTA, the Jewish Telegraph Agency, and then later for the Forward, which is the oldest newspaper in America, as a Central and Eastern European correspondent, which is why I eventually left here, because I would spend a lot of time reporting in Poland, sometimes in Hungary, Czechia, whatever. And but it didn't feel like work because I was getting paid to write, which was amazing.
Let's listen to what the result of this obsession is.
Oh, that's daunting. Yeah, okay.
Maybe you can give us a little introduction to what we're going to hear.
So Scent is this story about a guy who wants to be a journalist who goes to a very kind of purposely cliche Slavic country to find this woman that he's seen on internet pornography that he fell in love with, and he wants to kind of see what her deal is, whether he can kind of save her in this very delusional American sense, but also in this very romantic sense. And he sort of intuits through watching this movie from a calendar in the background of a ruined castle where this might be. And he goes to this place, which increasingly becomes a mythical kind of place, until he finds himself in this really sort of egregiously fairy tale town. This was their remorse. His computer. Peeled the screen away from the keys and all the letters glistened. He could spell anything. He could spell cultivar and calyx and stamen. It could spell exocarp and endocarp and mesocarp and poem. It could spell spelling and apple, A-P-P-L-E, apple, all while circumscribing the cryptogeography of Eden, vegetarian recipes, porn. The white box whirred as he began to waste. Life was the same as battery life. He couldn't be bothered to plug anything in. He was tired but wouldn't yet crash. He had to sap the stress of driving, enough driving, the trees and the roads, the rubbish, rumbling shoulders. This screen was less boring than a windshield. How could he even begin to map what was inside his apple? Its pulp contents, its seeds. On top of everything on the desktop, there's a folder called David's Documents. And in the folder called David's Documents, there's a subfolder called Sophomore Year, which contains in itself subfolders called Math, Science, Math Again, Science 2, Language and Literature Requirements, which contains inside not a folder anymore, or folders within folders, like a Slavic doll, nested one doll within another, like they're pregnant already. That's what happens whenever a user turns his back and leaves them, even toys, alone. But there were files. Files upon files, listed and named, and the names of these files were, but were not limited to, Gandhi. And Gandhi one more time. And Pilgrim's Progress Report. And Pilgrim's Progress Report Final. And lastly, alphabetically, what activities I did on my summer vacation. Which is a file, no, an essay, no, a paper, from as early as his 5th grade. which begins, quote, "What activities I did on my summer vacation was to go with Mom to a gazebo. We went sailing and I got, quote, severely sunburned.